Hello team, welcome back to another Line War cast. Check out your map today. 3 oils on the bottom. We have the famous 2 oils on 1 piece of land situation going on this game. Both players try to pick that first. So it's vetoed right now, and they're continuing to pick the spots. A city and an oil on the right side. Trade route through the little middle bay. And our 2 players today are Notorious Nubs, who's in red, who is spawning in the bottom here and taking an oil in the water, and Barracuda in blue. And I don't know where okay, so Barracuda is right here on the left side of the map. Very close spawn. Neither player knows they're right beside each other. I don't think Barracuda can see this either. Probably at this point by putting the buildings down. And yeah, so okay, so at this point both players will know they're very close. Notorious Nubs goes for 3 factory airport immediately, and Barracuda is going for 5 racks and 1 factory that is putting out artillery right now. This is a really cool start from Nubs, actually. 3 factory tank with an airport. Presumably, okay, so this is the first gas that Nubs is going to take. Really, when Red knows that the opponent is on like here on the map, it does actually make sense to take this as a second gas as opposed to this. I mean, there could be tanks that come out of this forest that can rush onto these gases. By putting the gas here, it's a little bit, more difficult for tanks to come into play, and then airports, of course, could reach it, but then you've already gone for an airport yourself. Interesting strategic decision from Red. And with 5 barracks, Barracuda is going to have a lot of infantry relatively quick at this point. First 3 tanks for Nubs finish and are going to immediately, on a double retreat command, head towards this gas, which is a great play because realistically, if Barracuda started in the position that they did and had an airport or was going for tanks, that would be the gas that Barracuda would have to take, or rather would be the most expected gas for blue to be taking. 1 artillery piece for blue right now, alternating between SAMs and artillery. I mean, I kind of like this. It's nice to have SAMs in case your opponent opens airports. I'm not sure if Barracuda's played in Taurus Nubs before, so maybe they know something. But Nubs did go for an airport right away, so this is a good SAM. The sound of these tanks are really freaking me out. I don't know why. It sounds like there's like an echo. Either way, these tanks are going to do absolutely nothing when they run up to this forest. I don't know in the replay view if this means Nub sees how many units are in here. I doubt it because tanks really don't have that good vision. Like tanks really don't see all that much around them. If we take Nub's vision right now, I don't think these buildings would be seen. $284 income from Nubs and 320 for Barracuda, which makes sense. Barracuda's going for his 6th barracks, which I do like, and helicopters from Nubs, the first of which is on its way to get into the forest here and pick off some infantry. Nubs is continuing with tanks. It's going to be 3 more tanks out of Nubs, so there's going to be 9 tanks on the field. A second gas at some point potentially would need to be thought about if you're Red, but the tanks haven't been haste moving, so maybe that's part of the plan, is build more tanks but don't haste move them everywhere. Tanks through forest go super slow. You can see in the tooltip the exact numbers. It's actually a pretty wild defensive line from Nubs, just in the middle of nowhere in this forest, really. It's not even protecting anything, but Barracuda's running into it, so I guess this is a good move from Nubs. Infantry get a bonus in the forest, and I really like this play. Just building a barrack or a defensive structure in the forest. And then there you go, Nubs deletes it. Nubs is at 320 income. Barracuda at 344, very close game right now. There's so much map to the left, and so one of the overarching themes of this game is if Barracuda gets stuck boxed into the kind of left side of the map and Nubs is able to take this part of the map, it could be very tough for Barracuda because economically they'd likely be behind at that point. This many tanks against this many infantry, the tanks should win. Infantry get the bonus in the forest, so that'll help them out a little bit, but unless, like, it's gonna be okay. There's 4 tanks now at this point on this clump of infantry. 1 tank goes down. Barracuda's done a good job to defend the production from the tanks of Nubs that are kind of hanging out to the north of the base, these 3 specifically. But it's not like Barracuda's been able to expand either, which is really tough. Barracuda's at 344 income, and now Nubs has passed Barracuda and is at 356. And a huge thing for blue right now is that Nubs is out of gas. There is no second gas quite yet, and there's now however many tanks. 1 less of however many at this point. But it's enough that there needs to be 2 gases to kind of sustain this. Every time that the tanks kick up that black trail of smoke, they take increased damage for 5 seconds. There's not enough units of blue to wipe these tanks, but as we see, like a handful of tanks get picked off. And there's the second gas from Nubs, who also has a barracks in this forest, which is definitely the play to keep expanding to the north of the map. Tanks through mountains, very painful. They're super slow, but there's enough tanks they're going to be able to just slowly, like, traverse the mountains. And Nubs is continuing with tanks. Tanks and helicopters. Barracuda is slowly getting boxed in. 416 income for Nubs and 344 for Barracuda, which hasn't really changed much. It's tough because Barracuda has to stay close to the buildings so that the tanks can't just run onto the production. But by doing this, there's no progress being made to expand outwards and cut Nubs off from the right side of the map. 4 SAMs is great for blue. It's going to be enough to take out 2 helicopters. There's no way this is going to work. There goes the second helicopter. SAMs, of course, aren't going to be great against tanks, so once these tanks get over the mountain range, they're going to get a little bit quicker and be able to move through the forest and get on the production. If Nubs has the gas, and with the second refinery finishing just now, Nubs is going to have the gas. The ultimate pog play is that, I didn't miss it, these 2 commandos, in fact 4 commandos, are about to snipe this airport. Potentially. Let's see what Barracuda's got. So this is the line. A super good play. Going for a factory first, I don't mind that at all. Factory or airport probably at this point are both good. I mean, there's 4 SAMs for Barracuda, so at least there's some protection against air. It's the tanks that blue is struggling to deal with a little bit right now. Nubs sends home 1 tank, but this tank isn't going to have all that great of vision. I guess with the buildings, actually, it doesn't matter. So there, the 3 commandos can be seen. This 4th commando slightly out of range. Commandos get 1 factory. If they get the airport, this is super worth it. I think with 1 factory, it's kind of a wash. But certainly if the airport goes down, this is a huge win for blue. Nubs is doing the smart thing by building another factory to the north here to replace that factory that was lost. And unfortunately for Barracuda, the airport doesn't fall. Still a very good play from Barracuda. Nubs is cutting off the commandos that are continuing the same command. But at this point, there's like 4 tanks at home, so it's going to be tough for commandos to do anything. And checking the economy, 344 income for Barracuda and 476 for Nubs. The one feature request I have for Line War, and I understand why it doesn't exist yet, is just a better replay interface, so I don't have to hilariously switch this camera view every time I want to see someone's income. Otherwise, love it. There's a handful of artillery that Barracuda has. Unfortunately, there's not really that much infantry to kill with this artillery. And artillery against tanks, it's kind of, you know, if your artillery is set up before the tanks show up, then the artillery can get good trades. But if you're kind of trying to just fight in an open field against tanks with artillery, very likely it's not going to go all that well unless you have an overwhelming number of infantry to protect your artillery. And I wouldn't really say that blue's in that position. The 3 northern tanks getting sniped from red, like Barracuda taking out these tanks, is huge because now Barracuda can start to expand northward. But it's a very precarious situation that blue is in. I mean, we can see that Barracuda is losing money at this point at 344 total economy. And Nubs is making almost 150 a minute at 512 total economy. So at this point, if blue wins this game, this is a certified comeback. I love these commandos that continue to go towards the base. It's actually not protected at all, really. Nubs can't see these commandos either, so the commandos are going to show up super quick. And be on top of at least the factory. With an interceptor in the air, interceptors have fantastic vision, so now these commandos are exposed. And as the interceptor flies away, obviously they disappear immediately. So these commandos can do a lot of damage. They're certainly going to get at least 1 factor, I believe. I like this play from Nubs to send tanks into the bottom left of the map to cap those 2 gases. Tanks are the pound for pound the best unit on the ground in a straight up fight. They just take a lot of gas. So if you have the gas to sustain it, it's a wild strat. I mean, what's funny is that Nubs is going to the bottom left to get the gases, but there's 3 gases here. There's a 4th one. It's all super easy to cap. I guess there's a decent amount of territory down here besides the gas. Another fantastic dig-in from Nubs. I'm not sure how long the units... Well, after they dig in, they're fatigued for a little bit. So these units may have been fatigued. I'm not really sure exactly how defensive lines work. But either way, it does stop blue from moving as quickly forward. It's an interesting concept to just quickly dig in. Another barracks from Nubs. No one's on the right side of the map yet. It's so much economy that's just lying open. Here comes the enormous push from Nubs. Tanks through the mountains are super slow, but once they get on top of the targets, they're going to do a lot of damage. But you can see the way that these tanks on the left are getting bunched up a little bit, and the back ones aren't really firing at all. The northern tanks are running into pre-deployed artillery and enough infantry to body block the tanks a little bit. I think in general, blue is trading very well right now. And Nubs knows it. And Nubs gets rid of the target command. This is going to be... Like, both the north and the south, all the tanks are going to die. Which is a big win for Barracuda, who at this point is almost 200 income behind Nubs. This is a very positive development for Barracuda. If they could get to the north and build a barracks or something to cap all this, it would be huge. Two refineries and a depot for Nubs, which is a great play considering how many tanks are being made and continue to be made. Nubs is going for artillery out of this third factory that was made. But besides that, it's continues to be tanks. I wonder if Barracuda is going to have the opportunity to go for a trade route here. Given the location of the base, it could actually work. It's just hard to afford it right now if you are blue at just over 400 economy. Interceptors and helicopters from Nubs. And some economy. Industry and a town. I mean, this is looking better and better for Nubs as the game goes on. A little bit of a lull in the action right now as both players regroup and kind of assess the situation. There's a handful of tanks in the center for Nubs that are just hanging out. And one of the open questions is which player is going to be able to get to this northern mountain range first? Because if you control the north part of the map, that is a lot of economy. Four SAMs in the forest for blue are going to be very effective against interceptors and helicopters, which are the lighter of the units that come out of an airport. Lucky for Nubs, one of the SAMs gets sniped right away, pardon me. Second SAM gets sniped. That's very unfortunate. I mean, a lot of these planes got out with very little health. Surely this helicopter goes down. And it does. 7 tanks for Nubs, that is a very dangerous amount of tanks. And there's enough gas to be able to move these tanks. As long as these tanks do some damage and don't get immediately wiped, this is surely the beginning of the end of this game. Look at all this economy that Nubs is going to be able to take uncontested. I mean, potentially if these tanks just got wiped without even trading at all, it would still look good for Nubs. Barracuda on top of the defense, as they have been the whole game, really. Not has there been one building that went down? Maybe at the beginning? I don't even think so. Barracuda hasn't even lost a production building to early aggressive tanks this entire time. And this is no different. In the forest, Barracuda is definitely not winning. This is tough. Great combined arms from Nubs. Commandos, infantry, artillery. Even a tank or two mixed in. And Nubs very correctly dips. And might find this barracks, which is huge. Barracuda is almost to the northern mountain range first, but not even really. There's 4 infantry that can contest this. And the sound we heard all those cows is Nubs going for the final industry on this city by the gas. Nubs has done a good job to constantly multitask these tanks and pin all these units at home. There's always been one group of tanks that at any moment could just jump in on production. 675 income for Nubs. Barracuda at 452. And doing a good job to fend off these attacks. If this barracks gets up, maybe another barracks somehow that's built up here, Barracuda could be in a decent position or start a comeback. Production-wise, it's 3 factories and 2 airports versus 1 factory for Barracuda. So really, it's just maybe a little. It's going to be very tough to come back from this, and it has been for like the last 8 minutes, I think. 2 production facilities go down. The first time that the tanks have been able to effectively like snipe one of those, but that's pretty devastating given the amount of production that Red has. The second airport particularly, pardon me, devastating. Because there's only 1 factory for Blue. So it's not like there's going to be a lot of SAMs that can be produced. Nubs is pushing through the mountains. The view from Barracuda, I mean, you can see that the units are moving forward. Blue definitely has enough to trade decent here. The tanks aren't going to be able to get around these 4 wide lines. And does Nubs just defend? Yeah, so Nubs just defends here. And that's okay, because for Nubs, really, the last thing Nubs needs to do is contest this. And then economically, the game is pretty much guaranteed. 815 income for Nubs, 416 income for Barracuda. Which is obviously substantial at this point in the game. This is great for Barracuda. Attacking the side of the defensive line. Units that are being attacked from behind the defensive line, as you'd expect, don't have a defensive bonus. So these 4 or 5 infantry for Blue on the left side of that defensive trench are going to be able to do a ton of damage. Tanks in the top still not finding any damage. Barracuda's on top of it. Has all the units grouped up around the buildings. Nubs is going for helicopters out of both airports right now. And it's setting up for having just a helicopter swarm. Helicopters are this wild unit that once you get enough of them, they hit kind of a critical mass. And unless the opponent has like 2 full dots of SAMs, it's hard to stop them. They hover over their target, their DPS is so high. Let's see how it goes here. There's only 1 SAM left for Blue. And 4 helicopters are probably going to kill the SAM very quickly. So the first helicopter goes down because it decided 1v1 the SAM. Now these helicopters kind of are 3v3, not really. And the second SAM goes down. And 3 helicopters likely are going to get out of here. Now it's all artillery out of Nubs going for the 4th factory. There's no more tanks, which is probably good for Nubs because I wonder how many tanks have been lost this game. It's going to be an overwhelming amount of artillery. At this point, I mean, really, it's 4 factories against 1 factory for Blue. This is great for Barracuda, but a barracks has been built for Nubs close to the north. And off of this economy, 842 for Nubs, which is 400 above Barracuda. Still a very dire economic situation for blue. This is a great play to send the helicopters to the north, I think, to cut off these infantry that are reinforcing. Because Nubs wants to kind of stop blue from expanding past this forest. That's definitely the play. Force blue to come this way. And continue to box them into the corner of the map. City on the way for Nubs. These infantry have tons of economy to cap. I mean, really, if Nubs even just made like an airport here and a barracks to command a drop or something, or just a handful of barracks. There's no easy place for Barracuda to cap except for up here, these handful of territories. Whereas Nubs has so much that can get capped. And it's starting to get this bottom left part of the map. I feel like in a situation like this, bombers could almost be a... They're not even good. Never mind. I take it back. Bombers could be good because there's no interceptors for blue. So if Nub just made bombers and clicked on buildings very quickly, these would be gone. But even strikers would do the same thing. And this is definitely the last push from blue. The artillery in the mountains is very tough because, as we can see by all the blue at the base of this mountain, when the infantry moves slowly through the mountain themselves, I mean, the artillery just gets so many more shots off. It's very hard for infantry to dislodge artillery out of mountains. And I don't think enough players abuse that. I didn't even notice this. Okay, so Barracuda has an airport. I was wondering, I didn't really understand why there was a gas. My bad. I didn't even see this. Helicopters from Barracuda. I mean, this, you could make a comeback off of this. There's no SAMs off on the map right now, but it's kind of a little bit too little, too late, I think. At this point, I mean, Barracuda is making very little money. Nubs has eclipsed 1,000 income per minute. It's just a tough starting location from Barracuda, I think, and not getting to the north in enough numbers early. But very good game. This whole time, Barracuda has done this while only losing 2 buildings. Which is kind of wild. Stams looks so cool. Shooting the rockets everywhere. We got helicopter versus helicopter fights in the south. Pardon me. And here comes the F2A move. As they say. Everything going forward for red. Clearing out the last buildings. Nubs doesn't see the airport yet, but it will be relatively obvious that this is where the airport is, the general vicinity, since the helicopters come from that direction. And if there is any doubt, unfortunately blue isn't going to be able to bust through this part of the map. Well, I mean, it's a very good game. Props to both players. As always, if you want to learn more about the game, check out the Landward Discord. There's like-minded people there who like to talk strategies and help others. Check out Twitch if you want to watch people play the game. I stream over there as SodaQuackers. Other folks do too. Otherwise, enjoy your night, day, evening, breakfast, dinner, lunch, afternoon tea, whatever it is. See you later. Peace.